Well, to discuss the parts of the world that are awash with debt and the looming stress tests for the European banks, I'm joined now from London by Jan Randolph, Head of Sovereign Risk at IHS Global Insight. Jan Randolph, thanks for joining us.
Pleased to be with you.
Well, how do you assess the threatened credit rating downgrade from Moody's?
Well, it's a shot across the bow over Washington. The stalled debt talks, the failure to raise the limit. We're living in a situation where America's running its finances from one legislative cliffhanger to the next. And it's simply not the way to run finances, let alone the finances of the largest economy in the world. And this is seriously worrying all those who invest in US government debt, but also the rating agencies. It's simply a question of governance. You can't hold the debt ceiling hostage to the sovereign rating and party politics.
Do you think that shot across the bow is going to prove effective? Will it break the deadlock?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot more warnings out there to those who participate in the debt talks. Everyone has to fully understand the consequences of their actions and their decisions. And failure to raise the debt ceiling, and there's a small but rising risk of this. Failure to raise the debt ceiling has huge consequences for US sovereign, US debt, the largest debt markets in the world, and it will have an impact globally.
But do you expect it to come to that, or can you imagine that actually happening?
Well, the markets expect there to be another 11th hour agreement, like last time. But that's not really satisfactory governance, living from one cliffhanger to the next. But there is also a small but rising risk that they won't come to an agreement. And the consequences are unquantifiable but cataclysmic.
Well, let's look at another area of the world where we've got plenty of cliffhangers, so to speak. There seems to be a lot of pressure on Italy, for example, at the moment, more pressure than Spain. How do you explain that? I would have thought that Spain was a bigger basket case than Italy.
Well, they both need a lot of reform, that's true. Yes, it's true up until now, Italy has managed to sidestep the crisis. It is the third largest economy. It has its finances more or less in order, well managed by these mandarins who effectively run Italy despite the politics. And, you know, it is interesting why now Italy's come into the crosshairs of the markets. I think we have to see this as part of a pattern. The bond markets are calibrating risk much more carefully now from government to government within Europe. Not all governments are equal to Germany when it comes to creditworthiness. And I think the rising yields or the interest rate spread representing the higher risk is something here to stay, and that includes Italy.
Okay, and so, I mean, is it also the size of Italy's market, perhaps?
Well, Italy does have very large public debt, but what people don't realise also that it has quite a large savings pool and a high savings rate, which it taps into. But, you know, that debt is heavy. The real problem for Italy is the lack of growth. 1% growth per annum, ultimately, that's going to create problems holding all that debt.
Okay, and moving to Greece, I mean, do you expect Greece to default? Is it just a matter of time there? And is that going to cause serious problems? Because people half expect Greece to default anyway.
Yeah, I think this is precisely why we're seeing all this global financial market uncertainty and volatility. The important move yesterday was the IMF. IMF provides 1/3 of all the funding to these bailouts. They align themselves with Germany, the German position. That means they've outmaneuvered the ECB. What it all means is that there will be, the IMF has argued that the size of the financing and the desirability of private sector involvement is now necessary and desirable. That means default. It means the bailing in the private creditors for Greece, recognising they do have an unsustainable debt problem and that private sector has to get involved, is frightening the markets, because that's going to be the template for future financing of bailout countries, and it's worrying the markets.
Well, here's something else that might frighten the markets: the stress test results that are due out on Friday after a close look at 91 of the European Union's biggest lenders. Do you expect the results of that test to comfort the global community?
Well, on the one hand, yes, because it provides greater transparency. It'll be more granular in terms of which bank holds how much government debt, for example. At the same time, there may be those banks that are vulnerable may come under further pressure. And in the banking world, banks do a lot of business with each other. They're very much like mountaineers roped up trying to climb mountains. So we hope that the governments, when the results come out, the governments are also prepared with contingency plans to assist any kind of knock-on consequences to their banks.
Because there's a fair chance that some of the banks will actually be worse off than we might have thought. That's not going to be very comforting or stabilising for global markets, is it?
No, I mean, again, this is, I hope the European policymakers are prepared in the sense that when the results are revealed, they also have contingency plans in place, risk mitigation plans in place to support one or two of those banks that may come under a lot of pressure as a result of this greater transparency, which is a positive in European banking.
OK, Jan Randolph, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for your time.